Greetings, geeks and girls. Welcome back to another MCU review. I am broadcasting to you from my humble little nerd cave, where we are going to be talking about the fourth entry into the MCU, Captain America, the first Avenger. I almost said Winter Soldier because I'm so used to that one's title, just because that title rolls off the tongue a bit better. But nonetheless, this is kind of an easy film to talk about, but at the same time, there's not much to talk about. With the other films, they did big things. Iron Man broke new grounds. The Hulk was one of the best films one of my personal favorite films. And Thor had such an amazing scope. With this film, there's not really much to talk about. It's just kind of what, like the character, a humble little film about a humble little hero. Also, yes, I am going to be mentioning that word humble a lot because this is the second take, and I said that like 6 times in the first take. But I digress. Still, I feel like this film is a big deal, and of course, gave birth to one of most people's favorite Marvel heroes in the MCU. Good old Captain America, who's had many, many, many films. 3, I believe, to be exact. Maybe 4. 3? 4? I don't know. But he's had a few films, a few in the 60s, and one in the 90s. And we all know that I'm not going to review those because, honestly, I think that the Nostalgia Critic did as much as he could to do that, so I'm going to leave that to him. But if you want to hear my thoughts, 2 stars for both. The 60 films for Cheese Factor, and 1 star for the 90s film because it sucks. But as for this film, I really enjoy Steve Rogers. Chris Evans, who you might remember from Fantastic Four a while back. But still, I feel like that he's a great Captain America. I mean, he definitely redeemed himself as a Marvel actor in the same way that Ben Affleck did in his playing Batman and after being so bad in Daredevil. I really like this character. Out of all the characters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think he might be my favorite just because of how much of a wholesome guy he is. He's the guy who's just like... He's just like that type of guy who will go down and see like a mugging on the street and he'll go stop it. You know, Iron Man wouldn't do something like that. That guy would be dead, you know? But also, what I was bleh, blah, 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 blah. Another thing about Chris Evans' Captain America that I really enjoy is the CG on the body during the transformation. Of course, every superhero actor has to really go through like intense physical training to be like, specifically people like Tobey Maguire and Chris Evans and a few others. They go or Chris Hemsworth as well. They go through intense physical training to make sure they have the body that the character deserves. And Chris Evans does its job. But again, they have to use CG to make him look like a stick. You know, really short, really skinny, basically Jack Skellington with skin. And that's what they did, and it looks just as good as it did in Spider-Man 1 in 2002. It's still, that effect has not gone old for me. It still looks just as good as it needs to. And another thing I really wanted to mention about this film is that the director of this film is, I don't really remember his name, but he also directed The Rocketeer, which was another film that took place in olden times around, like, you know, I believe during World War II or one of the World Wars. This film has that exact feeling as Rocketeer did. You can definitely tell just by looking at it what time period this takes place in. And it doesn't look as magnificent as Thor did, but it still has a nice, great... Like, the setting looks really nice. Specifically, it complements the character and plot very well. Speaking of characters and plot, if you don't know who Captain America is, well, let me break it down. It's about a guy who was really, really weak but wanted to join the military. But after realizing that Hitler was creating super Nazis known as Hydra, they decided to give the kid a chance and put him to a dangerous experiment called the Super Soldier Project, which gave him immense strength, speed, and agility. They put him in an amazing patriotic costume, and he became Captain America, fighting for freedom, will, and all that good stuff. But after fighting Red Skull, he crashed straight into the ice, froze, and was thawed out years later, when he became the first Avenger, compliments to Nick Fury. Now, basically that's the same plot as this movie, but the way they tackle it do a great job. You really do feel for Steve in the very first act of how bad he felt during getting his butt handed to him by just regular muggers. And when he gets really strong, he doesn't like abuse the power. He flat out understands what he needs to do, and that's what he does. He goes out there, fights for what he needs to do, after becoming a poster boy. But then he goes out and he fights for what he needs for America and what America needs. And sometimes that's giving Hitler an American-sized knuckle sandwich, if you know what I mean. Now, another thing I wanted to mention about this film is that this film didn't make me cry, but it did make me feel a lot of emotion towards Steve after he thawed out and came back years later. Realizing he would never see his true love again broke his heart, and I understand that feeling, because you can really feel for when something like that happens, when time is the one thing that keeps two people away. And I understand that, and that's very, very wholesome and little touching. Red Skull is Red Skull. He's just a regular, good old baddie. He's not anything special. He's not as good as any of the other villains that I will talk about later. He's just okay. Which is sad, because I feel like that Red Skull deserves to be as good as Loki and Ultron and Thanos and all these other characters. He's in the same ranking as the others are. But I digress. It was at least better than he was in the 90s film. He was forgettable, but at least he wasn't ridiculous and stupid. That's the worst thing a villain can be. And the last thing I wanted to talk about in this film is definitely what it started. This was the film that basically said, like, when Iron Man came out and they hinted about the Avengers at the post-credits sequence, people were like, oh yeah, wouldn't that be cool if that happened? This was the film that flat out said, guys, it's gonna happen. We're doing it. Get ready. Avengers is coming. And that's what got people super excited and insane. They were like, oh my god, we're actually gonna see the Avengers on the big screen. And of course, even though I didn't talk about Iron Man 2 because I don't own that film, Black Widow was in that film, and that of course led to that whole situation, which brought her into the situation. And Avengers introduced Hawkeye, and then that whole thing exploded. But yeah, this is technically the fourth, well, even though it is the fourth film in the series, this was the film that basically said, to basically shut up all the theorists, maybe the Avengers are coming. Marvel basically just said, it's gonna happen. Shut up and buy tickets. So, yeah, what would I give this film in terms of in terms of ranking? I would say that I'm gonna give this, I don't know, I feel like it's not like amazing, but I'm gonna give it a 4 stars and stripes out of 5. Just because that, it's not amazingly spectacular, like, oh my god, it's a great film though, and I definitely, of course, would recommend this film, and this character. Alright, so next up is going to be Avengers, but as you can tell, this is a very late video. It's been a long time since I've done one of these, and the reasoning is because, let's just say that we got a lot of money put into us, and my family, as a quick update on my life, we are getting a lot of crazy stuff going on. We might even be going away for a while, going on a vacation, which then it'll be pretty much impossible to do reviews, especially because I'll be away from my nerd cave. But sadly, I will try to get to it, and after Avengers, I think I'll try to rush that out as much as I can, as possible, as fast as I can, maybe sometime next week. But I am going to get that out, and then we're going to take a official break, so that way I can get everything done, and then maybe whenever I get back to the next stuff, whenever I get enough of the next set of films, which, honestly, I don't exactly know the order, because, again, I've skipped a few, including Iron Man 2, but then again, if you want to know mine, that's like a 3. But I will be getting to the other films, so don't worry about that. I really do hope to get to them all, because I am having a lot of fun with this type of stuff. It's just sometimes my life can be a little crazy. So, excuse the inconsistent updates. I know I was going to start saying I'm going to post these every Friday. It's not going to be like that as much until like maybe a specific week, like maybe sometime after summer. But nonetheless, I have fun doing these. Can't wait to show you Avengers. And considering that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has stopped for a while, I can branch out. And yes, I am, after Avengers, I am going to start doing those little miniature Marvel reviews again, because I do have to do films outside of the MCU now, including the Amazing Spider-Man films, a few X-Men films that came out that year, and I think a few other films that I just can't really name, but just kind of came out that weren't a part of the cinematic universe that I still want to talk about. But other than that, it was nice seeing you guys again, and that's about it. Take it easy, geeks and girls.